Hello friends, it's Kristine Vicente with Queen City Stamp Art, and today I'm back with another card. We're going to be using a bunch of different supplies today to make the clean and simple card. We're going to be doing a panel, an embossed panel, using the brick and mortar embossing folder. We're going to be using elements from the iconic die set, so one of the flowers and some leaves to decorate the card. And then the sentiment we're going to use is the happy birthday from the art gallery stamp set. So it's a bunch of different products, but I think you'll love how they come together. I'm going to show you a fun technique for using your embossing folders with ink. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up our embossing folder. Now, when you emboss with an embossing folder, you have a side of the embossing folder is indented and a side of the embossing folder is raised. And the indented side is always the side with the line. So this line is meant for you to be able to line your cardstock up so it's nice and straight, especially if there's a pattern that looks better when it's even and straight. That line will help you to get that straight. So we're going to be using this side of the embossing folder, the indented side, and we're going to take an ink pad and we're going to just put a little bit of ink. I thought this would be a fun way to make it a little bit more interesting. So I'm just going to add a little ink to the embossing folder, like that. And then we're going to line up the embossing folder with the line and close that down. And then I'm going to take the embossing folder and we're going to put it through the die cutting machine. And I'm just going to lay this on the base plate and add plate number 4 to the top. This is the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. And the 3D embossing folders use this special plate that comes with the machine when you buy it. This machine is great because everything you need to operate the machine for both embossing folders and dies comes with the machine. So you don't have to buy anything extra. So now what we're going to do is open this up and pull this out. Yeah, that looks nice. So part of it is now colored with ink. And now we're going to finish up the rest of the card. So I'm going to pull in the sentiment panel, and I've got my ink pad here. This is smoky or Gray Granite. This is Gray Granite. And I'm going to stamp the happy birthday sentiment. And then we can close this up and finish assembling the card. So I only did a portion of this in color, but you can see how it made it look a little bit more like letterpress. So the whole thing is embossed, but only part of it is colored, which gives it kind of an interesting, it adds an interesting layer to the card base. So we're going to use an 11 by 4 1/4 inch card. And then we're going to use some Bumblebee cardstock, and we're going to layer on the panel we just inked and embossed in sort of a letterpress fashion. And we're going to layer these two pieces together. And then we're going to layer this onto the base card. Just like that. And then we're going to finish this off by adding, I'm going to use this beautiful punch, and I will list the name of this one. This is one of the label punches. And I'm going to punch a shape of this in vellum cardstock. Vellum cardstock is great to use when you're trying to create sort of a filtered look so that whatever the background image is, it isn't quite so bold. So I'm going to add a little bit of adhesive to the bottom section of this and add it to my base card. Then I'm going to add the sentiment strip over the top of it. Just like this. And then we'll finish this card off with some dimensional adhesive and this really pretty die cut flower. So I'm just using some of these little mini dimensionals because they fit really nicely on here. And we're going to add these to the base card. Just like that. And then we'll put some regular adhesive onto the leaves like this and layer these on, just like that. And that finishes off the card. So the inked embossing folder really adds a nice background to this that isn't too overwhelming. It adds a little bit of an extra layer, but still preserves some of the white space to keep this very clean and simple. If I were to run the entire panel through the embossing folder with the ink, this is what I would get. So that's kind of a different look. It's still beautiful and still relatively simple, but I really like how the partial looks for the clean and simple design for this week. I also added some pearls, which I can add onto this one too, just to kind of finish it off. These little pearls will add a little bit of shine and some interest, some additional interest to the finished card, just like that. And that's the card for this week. So I will list all the supplies in the description of the video. If you need to do any shopping, there'll be a link to my shop. And I appreciate you watching, so thanks so much. See you next week.